I caught my husband cheating with my own sister on Thanksgiving. But the real betrayal wasn't the affair. It was my mother, who arranged it, covered it up, and chose my sister over me every single time. I didn't know any of that at the time, of course. All I knew, standing in my mother's kitchen with a plate of burnt rolls in my hand, was that my sister was laughing too quietly on the back porch, and my husband's voice was answering her. The gravy boat was chipped on the spout. I noticed it the moment my mother handed it to me, the way you notice a thing you've seen 100 times and suddenly can't stop looking at. She'd used that boat every Thanksgiving for as long as I could remember, and every year I expected her to throw it out, and every year she didn't. "Don't just stand there," she said, her voice the particular pitch she reserved for kitchen supervision. "The rolls need another 5 minutes. David, did you hear me?" The rolls. David was in the living room, 3 feet from the kitchen doorway, watching the Lions lose. He raised one hand without looking away from the TV. "God." "Mom," he called her mom. He'd called her mom since the second when she'd made him meatloaf, and he'd laughed at something she said, and I'd felt, for the first time in my life, like I might actually be allowed to have something that was 12 years ago. I set the gravy boat on the counter and went to check the rolls. The kitchen was crowded with the smell of turkey and sage and my mother's famous cranberries, the one recipe she refused to write down because it's in my hand. Not on. I'd asked for it 3 times. 3 times she'd changed the subject. The back door. I didn't think anything of it. People went out to the back porch all the time during family to smoke, to take a to escape my mother's commentary on the. I pulled the rolls out of the oven, set them on the stove, and was reaching for a dish towel when I heard my sister's laugh through the. It wasn't the laugh Danielle used at the dinner table, the bright performative one that said, "I'm fun, I'm the fun sister." This lower, the kind of laugh that happens when someone's mouth is near. My hand stopped on the dish towel. "She's in," David said. His voice was muffled by the door, but I knew it the way you know a sound you've lived with for 12. "She's been in there for 20 minutes, Max." "I am," Danielle said. "You're the one who's." "I'm not nervous." Pause. "I just don't want her to find out." "Not today." "Then when?" Danielle lowered her voice further, and I had to step closer to the. "We've been together 8 months. I can't keep doing this at your house while she's at a thing. I can't keep no, don't shush me. You said after Christmas? You said." David's voice edge, the one I'd learned to step around hers, the one that meant he was cornered and about to make my fault. "But Danny, she's got it on. Her mom's on her case about the house, her dad won't talk to anybody, and now this? On Thanksgiving? I'm not doing that today." I was sitting very still. The dish towel was in my hand. I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips, slow and heavy, like someone knocking on a door. 8 months. I did the math. 8 months. March. March was when David had started going to the gym in the morning, when he'd started keeping his phone face down the table, when he'd told me I was working too much, and maybe we'd talk about us, and then, when I'd tried to talk, said he was tired and would another time. 8. Clara? My mother's voice in the dining room flinched. Actually flinched, like a kid caught with a cookie jar. And, "Clara, are you bringing those rolls or am I eating dinner by my back door?" Silence. Then the sound of David's shoes on the porch. Quick. The way he moved when he'd been caught where he shouldn't be. The back door opened and I stepped back, picked up the dish towel, wiped my hands on my jeans, and turned around with the rolls in my other hand. David away. Danielle was behind him, adjusting her sweater pink. They both smiled. It was the same smile I used my whole life. The one that said everything's fine, I'm fine, me. The one my mother called. I'd used it when Danielle got I'd saved for, when my mother forgot graduation, when David missed our anniversary and late. I used it now. "Rolls are hot," I said, and walked past him into the dining room. Dinner was fine. That was the worst part. Dinner was perfectly, ordinarily fine. David passed the potatoes. Danielle told a story about a client at the salon who cried during a wax. My mother asked me about my work, in the way she always did, like she was checking a box. My father ate in silence, the way he always did. And when I caught his eye, he gave me a small tug and looked away. I ate. Laughed at Danielle's story. I told my mother the cranberry sauce was perfect, which it was. I watched reach for the gravy boat, the chipped one, pour it over his turkey, and I watched Dale's eyes follow his hand, and I watched my mother watch both of them. And for 1 second, one impossibly long second, I thought, she knows I didn't know how I knew it. There was no single thing, glance that lasted too long, no word out of place. It was she'd handed me the gravy boat. The way she'd said, "David, did you hear me?" Like she'd come back from somewhere. The way she'd looked at Danielle when Dan walked in late and said nothing. Not about punctuality. My mother always joked about punctuality. She had a whole bit about it. Tonight she hadn't said a word. I pushed the thought away. Or tried to. It sat in my chest like a stone we had high. We watched more football. Danielle helped my mother at the table, and David helped. And I sat on the couch with my father and watched the fourth quarter and said nothing. When it was time to... David hugged my mother. He always hugged my mother. And Danielle hugged me, tight, and whispered, "Love you, Sissy," in my ear. And I said, "You too, because that's what you said." Because if I didn't say it, the whole night would crack open, and I'd have to explain why I was cross-foyer on Thanksgiving. We drove home in silence. David had the radio on. Low, a station playing Christmas music even though it was November. I watched lights slide across the windshield. Beaverton at 9 at night was quiet, dark, the kind of suburb where everyone was already in their stretch pants watching movies with people they actually loved. David pulled the driveway. The garage up. We got out of the car. David went inside first, headed for the shower, always did after a long day. I stood in the garage for a moment, in the cold, with the Thanksgiving leftovers Tupperware bag hanging from my wrist. Hour start, I went inside. I set the leftovers on the kitchen counter. I walked to the bedroom, where David's phone was on the nightstand, face down, exact keeping it 8 months ago. I picked it up. I knew his passcode. I'd known it since the day I said it, because he'd used my birthday, because he'd thought that was romantic, and I'd actually use it. I typed it in. The phone locked. I didn't go to the messages first. I went to the photos, because that's where people make mistakes. Old. And were. Not explicit. Kind of thing you'd see on a site. But were, because they were ordinary. Danielle in David's truck, grinning, a coffee cup in her hand. Danielle on the beach at Cannon Beach. The one David had gone to alone for a guy trip. Danielle in our bed, our actual bed, wearing my robe. The blue one with the white piping bought me for my birthday 2 years ago. For a long time. The shower stopped. I heard David turn off the water, heard the curtain slide back, heard him onto the bath mat. I locked the phone, put it back on the nightstand, face down. Exactly where I'd found it, I walked out of the bedroom. I walked down the hall to the guest room, the one we used for storage and for when my best friend Maya came to visit, be alone and didn't want to go. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, with my coat still on and my shoes still. David humming in the shower down the hall. I pulled out my own phone and opened a browser and typed, to Portland, Oregon. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, in the dark, in the guest room of the house I'd picked out and paid half the mortgage on for 12 years. I read about retainer fees and filing paperwork and how long it took in the state again. And I thought about the gravy boat, chipped on the spout, and my mother's, and through the back door. And I thought, I am not going back on the hall. The bathroom door opened. David called, his voice muffled through 2 closed doors. "Clara? You in bed?" I didn't answer. I clicked on the first law firm's website and read the first line of their about page. And outside, somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barking, and I realized I was holding my breath. It out, slow, and it shook on the way out. And for the first time in 12 years, I didn't try to fix it. The law office was on the 3rd floor of a brick building in downtown Hillsborough, above a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso. I sat in a waiting room chair with my hands folded in my lap, and tried not to look like someone whose life had cracked open 4 days ago. I'd spent those 4 days pretending. I'd made coffee in the morning, answered client emails, folded laundry, slept in the guest room, and told David I had a deadline and needed quiet. He'd believed me. Or he'd wanted to. Either way, he hadn't asked. The attorney's name was Patricia Voss. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck, and she didn't waste time. "Tell me what happened," she said, and I did. I told her about the back porch, about the 8 months, about the photos. I didn't cry. Patricia Voss took notes and nodded, and when I was done, she said, "Okay, here's what we do." The paperwork took 2 weeks. I had to gather bank statements, mortgage documents, a list of shared assets. I did it at night, after David fell asleep, sitting at the kitchen table with the overhead light off, and only the glow of my laptop. I felt like a burglar in my own home. The day I served David, I did it at the kitchen table, on a Tuesday morning, because Tuesdays were unremarkable, and I wanted this to be unremarkable. I slid the papers across the table. He was eating cereal. He looked at the envelope, then at me. "What's this?" "Read it," he opened. He read the first. His face did something complicated. surprise, then recognition. Then the particular set of the jaw I'd learned meant he was about to make this about. You're filing for divorce? Because of what? Because you think, I don't think, David. I know. I heard you. I saw the silence that followed was the kind that hate. He stared at the table. Then he ran a hand through his hair and laughed, a short, bitter. 8 months, I said. 8 months. And you looked me in the eye every single day and told me you were tired, you were busy, you were stressed. You told me I was working too much. You told me we needed to talk about us, and then you never wanted. Okay. His voice rose. Fine, I tied up. But you want to know why? You want to know why I look somewhere else? Because you're never Clara. You're always on your laptop, always with a client, always so goddamn competent that I don't even feel like a husband in this house. I feel like a roommate who pays half the mortgage. Danielle, she needs me. She asks me how day was. She listens. There it was. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not sadness, anything harder. I owned somewhere that this day. I had known because I'd spent 12 years making myself small enough to him, quiet enough to challenge him. And Danielle is my sister, I said. She is. She is my sister. And you told her I didn't care. You told her our marriage was already over. Was it, David? Was it over before I did fucking her? Or did you just was over after? He didn't answer. He stood up, paced to the window, paced back. I don't want to do this. I didn't have my sister. Noon. He packed a duffel bag and took his truck and going. I stood in the driveway and watched and felt nothing, which was when feeling something, because feeling something Will cared. I called my mother that evening. Mom, I need to tell you something. She listened. I told her about the affair, about the divorce, about David leaving. When I finished, there was a long pause, and then she said, in the voice she used when she was choosing her words very carefully, Honey, are you sure you're not overreacting? I mean, David, he's a good man. People make mistakes. And Danielle, she's been going through a hard time. You know how she gets when she's lonely. Mom, my voice was steady. He cheated on me. With Danielle. For 8 months. I heard you. Clara, you've always been so quick to walk away. Your father and I, we've had our problems, but we didn't. Did you know? The silence this time was different. It was the silence of someone caught. Mom, did you know about David and Danielle? That's not fair. I don't want to be put in the middle. Did you know? I suspect I did. I didn't have proof, Clara. And what was I supposed to do? Ruin Thanksgiving? Ruin the family? I thought if I just stayed out, maybe it would work itself. I closed my eyes. I was sitting on the edge of the one I'd shared with David for 12 years, and the sheet still smelled like his shampoo, and my mother was telling me that she'd suspected and stayed. Of course she stayed. She always stayed out of it when it was me who hurt. I have to go, I said. Don't up. We need to talk about this as a... 5 minutes later, Danielle called. I'm so sorry, I never meant to. He told me you got done. He told me you didn't even love him. And I was so lonely, and you never even noticed. You were always so busy with your perfect life and your perfect... I did up. When she ran out of... I said, don't call. I called Father. He answered on the 4th ring. Dad, Clara, your mother told me. Did you know? A long pause. The sound of his breathing. Talk to your mother about this, Claire. I'm listening to... Or maybe I did. Remember, the divorce was final 6 weeks later. It was amicable on paper. We split the equity, split the savings. I kept the car. Dave. There were no kids, no pets, nothing to fight over except 12 years of a life that turned out to have been built on a foundation I hadn't. I signed the papers in Patricia Voss's office on a Thursday. The pen was blue. The paper was with the printer. I signed my name, Clara Bennett Marsh, soon to be again, and slid the paper past the desk. And Patricia Voss said, Congratulations, in the least congratulatory possible. Smiled. I was walking to my car when my phone buzzed. A group text. Sender was my mother. The recipients were Margaret, Robert, Ed. List. But my mother anyway. Or maybe it slipped. Or maybe she'd see it. The message said, Family dinner Monday at 6. David, you're still welcome here. This is your home too. I stood in the parking lot in the rain, holding my phone 3 times. Then I opened my contacts. I found Margaret. I blocked the number. I found Rob. Blocked. I found Daniel. Blocked. I found David. Already blocked since the day he left. my pocket. I got in my car. I turned the key. The radio came on, Christmas music still, though Christmas was over. And I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. Because of course the radio playing Christmas music. Because the world didn't reach because my life did. I drove home. To the empty house. To the room where I'd been sleeping. To the silence that was to be my life from. And I good. Let it be silent. At least silence doesn't lie to you. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that smelled like carpet cleaner and someone else's dinner. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a kitchen so small you could open the fridge and the oven at the same time and trap yourself between them. I'd rented it in February, 2 weeks after the house sold, and I'd told myself it was temporary. It was May now. It was still temporary. I'd lost the house in the divorce. Or rather, I'd chosen to sell it and split the money, because living there alone felt like living in a crime scene where I was both the victim and the only witness. The new buyers were a young couple with a golden retriever, and I'd handed them the keys and watched them walk through the front door and thought, they have no idea what happened in that guest room. Good. They shouldn't have to. The first 3 months were a blur of work. I took every client who called. I redesigned logos at midnight. I revised brand guidelines on weekends. I told myself I was building a business, and I was, but mostly I was feeling silent. An empty apartment was loud. A laptop was quiet. A deadline was a place to hide. Maya called every Tuesday. Have you eaten? Have you left the apartment? Have you talked to a human being who isn't paying? I said yes to all of it, and Maya didn't believe me, and Maya was right not. In April, Maya showed up at the apartment door with Thai food and a bottle of wine and we're talking. Actually talking. Not the I'm fine version. The real version. I tried. I'd sat on the couch with the pad thai getting cold. I don't know what you want me to say. It happened. It's over. Maya had looked at me for a long time. Then she said, Clara, you haven't cried once. I've known you for 19 years and I've seen you cry at dog commercials. Your husband cheated on you with your sister and your mother took their side and you haven't cried. That's not moving on. That's a bomb with the pill in it. I'd said nothing. I'd eaten pad thai. I'd changed the subject. Maya let me, because Maya knew when to push. The wedding invitation. Sarah Fist, mine and Dilter. Somehow, the woman who'd sold us our house and then sold it again after divorce, was marrying a guy Todd. And she'd invited both me and David because or because she thought enough time had passed, or because she was one of those people who believed that adults could be in a room together without it. Then I would, because not going won, and I was tired of them winning. I wore a blue dress. I did my makeup. I drove to the venue, a winery outside Newburgh, with vineyards rolling down to the river, and a tent strung with fairy lights, and I walked in alone, and I told myself I was fine. I was fine until the cocktail hour, when I turned around and there they were, David and Danielle. He was wearing a gray suit. She was wearing a pink dress that I recognized. It was the one I'd bought for my own birthday dinner 3 years ago, the one Danielle had borrowed and never returned. They were holding hands. Danielle was smiling the smile, the bright one, the one that said, I'm fun, and I won, and you lost. My first instinct was to leave. My second was to hide. My third, the one that surprised me, was anger. Hot, sharp, immediate anger that rose from somewhere I didn't know I had. Danielle saw me first. Her face did something. A flicker of panic, then calculation. Then the smile widened, and she dropped David's hand and walked toward me with her arms open. Claire. Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. It's so good to see you. I didn't move. Danielle hesitated, arms still open, then let them drop. Clara, come on. It's been months. Can't we be adults about this? I miss my sister. People were walking. I could feel the sideways glances, the sudden hush in nearby conversation. Danielle had chosen her moment, public, quoted, where I couldn't make a scene without looking like the. I looked, really looked, at the pink dress that was mine, at the smile that was practiced, at the woman who had climbed into bed, my act, and worn my robe and smiled for a photo while I was at a client meeting earning the money that paid for. You stole my, I said. My voice was quiet, but the people nearby heard me and the hush thinned. You stole him and you wore mess? And now you want to stand here in front of all these people and pretend we're having a sister moment so that I look like the everyone, and you look like. Danielle's smile. Clear. No. I took it forward. Danielle back. You don't do that. You don't get to steal my life and then ask me to be graceful about it so you don't feel bad. You want to know how I'm doing? I'm doing great. I live in an apartment that smells like someone else's dinner and I work 12 hours a day and I haven't cried once because if I start, I might not stop. But at least I'm not you. At least I don't have to look in the mirror every morning and know that everything I have, I took from some. Dave's there now. He'd seen the crowd over. Clara, is it? Turn to him. You don't get to tell when it's enough. You lost that right 8 months before Thanksgiving. You lost it in our bed, in my robe, on a beach you told me was a guy's trip. You don't get to say anything ever. Turned and walked away. Didn't look back. I could hear Dan crying behind me. Real tears. Primitive tears. I didn't know, care. And I could hear something. And I could feel every eye on my back. And I walked faster, made it to my car, closed the door, and I sat in the driver's seat in the parking lot of the winery with the vineyard's glowing sunset. Didn't cry. Yes. Maya opened the door in pants and a t-shirt, took one look at my face and pulled me inside, and asked what happened. She made tea. She sat me on the couch. She put a blanket over me. And then, because Maya was Maya, she said, "You can cry now. They're here to perform for." I tried not. I bit my lip. I stared at the wall. I thought about the times I hadn't cried, at the lawyer's office, at the signing, in the empty house, in the apartment that smelled like someone else's dinner, in the car. I thought about my mother, about the way handed me the gravy boat, about the group text David was still welcome, about the fact that my mother had chosen Danielle and left me out, and I thought, I spent my whole good enough for her. I spent 38 years trying to daughter she could be proud of, chose Danielle. Always chose Danielle, and then I was crying. Not quiet tears, not the polite, manageable crying I'd done at dog commercials. This was something else. Something that came from so deep inside me it fell out by force. I cried for the girl who'd saved for a car and watched her sister get it. I cried for the graduate whose mother forgot the ceremony. I cried for the wife who'd made herself small and quiet, still not been enough. I cried for the daughter who'd waited 38 years for ever going to come. Held me while I cried. She didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't okay, and she didn't say let it out, because I was already letting it out, didn't say anything at all, just held me. When it was over, I lay on the couch with my head in Maya's lap, eyes swollen and my raw, and I felt not better, but lighter, like something that had been sitting on it up. I went home that night. I stood in a tiny apartment kitchen and I pulled out my phone. My photos. I scrolled. There were hundreds. Family vacations, holiday dinners, birthdays. David, Danielle, my mother, my father, all of them smiling, all of them pretending. I selected them all. I deleted them. The phone asked if I were. I pressed it. Then I put the phone, and I stood in the dark kitchen. In the apartment smelled like someone else's dinner. And I said out loud, to no one, I'm done waiting. And for the time in a very long time, I meant it. 5 years is a long time and no time at all. I was 43 now. I had a condo in Northeast Portland, a corner unit with exposed brick and a balcony where I grew tomatoes that never quite ripened. My design business had grown. I had 3 regular retainer clients, a portfolio I was proud of, and a website that Maya had helped me build because you can't keep using a Gmail address, Clara. You're a professional. I had Sam Whitfield, 42, high school history teacher, divorced, a 12-year-old daughter named Lily who loved horses and hated vegetables, and had decided, about 6 months in, that I was okay, I guess, which from Lily was the equivalent of a Nobel Prize. Sam was steady. That was the word I used when people asked. Steady. He showed up. He called when he said he would. He talked about things, actually talked, about his feelings, about his day, about the book he was reading. And he listened when I talked, which was still a novelty. Because for 12 years I'd been married to a man who treated conversation like a competition he was trying to lose. We'd been together a year and a half. I hadn't moved in. Sam hadn't asked. It was the healthiest relationship I'd ever been in, and sometimes that scared me more than the unhealthy ones. Because healthy meant I had something to lose, and I'd already lost a lot. The letter came on a Tuesday in October. Certified mail. I was in the middle of a logo revision when the mail carrier knocked, and I signed for it without looking, and the return address was a law office in Beaver, and the name on the envelope was Robert J. I opened it with a letter opener I'd bought at a thrift, a brass thing shaped like a joke gift from, and I read the first paragraph 3 times before it said, Robert Bennett had died 3 months. Heart attack, quiet in his sleep the way he lived. The letter was from his attorney, a man named Harold, and it said that Robert's last will and testament had been updated approximately 1 year prior to, and that under terms, the family home at 4812 Lane, Beaverton, Oregon was bequeathed to me, Clara Bennett, former in its It said that my father had specifically instructed the attorney to wait 3 months after his death before because, and here the letter quoted him, she will need time before she has to. I was standing in the kitchen, and my leg out, and I sat down on the floor and I read the envelope. The one that had been paper-clipped. The one that said, Clara. In my father's handwriting, shaky and uneven, the way his handwriting had gotten in the last years, opened it. It was 2 pages. My father had never written me a life. He'd signed birthday cards with love, Dad, and that was it. But this was different, said. I'm writing this because I don't know how to say it out loud, and I'm. The doctor says my heart is worse. I don't want you to find out from your mother. I know what happened with David and Danielle. I knew before you did. Say anything. I should have stood up for you. I didn't. I'm sorry. The house is yours. It should have been yours a long time ago. Don't let your mother talk you out of it. Don't let anyone talk you out of anything ever again. Love, Dad. I sat on the kitchen floor for a long time, the letter in my hand, the sound of my own breathing. Somewhere outside, a leaf blower started up, and a dog barked, and the world kept, and I thought he died. 3 months ago, and no one told me. I called Maya. Maya came over. Maya read the letter. I said, "Oh, Clara," and I didn't cry. Yet, not now. Because there was something else underneath the grief. Something harder and sharp, and it was this. The house was mine. My father had left it to me, and my mother and sister were still living in it. I called Harold Finch the next morning. He was a soft-spoken man in his 70s with a hearing aid and an office that smelled like old paper. He confirmed everything. The deed was in my name. The house was mine, free and clear. My father had paid off the mortgage 5 years ago. There were no liens, no complications, nothing. Your mother and sister are still residing there, Harold said carefully. As tenants, essentially, without a lease. You have every right to— I know what my rights are, I said. I didn't mean to snap. Harold Finch looked at me over his reading glasses. I'm sorry. I need to see the house. Of course. I drove out to Beaverton on a gray October afternoon. The trees along Cedar Lane were turned. Maples, most. The kind my mother had planted when I was 5 because they'd be pretty for the holidays. The house looked the same. White siding, green trim, a porch swing that my father had built, a flower bed that my mother had tended for 40 years and was now, I noticed, overgrown. I parked in the driveway. I sat in the car for a minute. I thought about turning around. I thought about driving home and pretending the letter had never come, and letting my mother and sister live there forever, and never thinking about any of it again. Then I thought about my father's handwriting. Don't let your mother talk you out of it. I got out of the car. I walked up the stairs. I rang the door. The door opened. It was Dan. She looked. Her hair was longer, streaked with something I didn't remember. She was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt with a coffee stain on the shirt, and she was holding a maybe, with David's eyes and Danielle on her. Danielle's. Her face went through the same sequence it all did. Surprise, recognition, calculation. And then she said, in a voice that was trying for casual and missing by— What are you doing? I didn't. I was looking past Danielle, into this, at the living room I'd grown up in, at the couch where my father had sat every night watching TV, at the bookshelf where my mother kept her photo albums, and then my mother's there, coming down the hallway, wiping her hands on a towel, and she saw me, and the dish towel fell from— Sarah, mother said. Then, because she was who was, and she always found a way to make it about herself. How dare you, after everything? The house is mine, I said. I held the deed. Harold Finch had given me a certified copy and I'd brought it own. Dad, to me, I'm the owner. I came to see. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the toddler quiet, looking from face to face with the wide-eyed confusion of a child who knows something is wrong. But my mother's mouth opened. Danielle shifted the boy on her hip. So the house. Clock ticked. I stood on the porch in the October gray, holding the deed in one hand and my father's in the other, and I looked at the family I'd walked away from and the family that had walked away, and I thought, this is never over. It was just waiting. And the little boy, David's eyes, Danielle's mouth, reached out toward me and he said, "Well, Auntie?" And I didn't know what to say. I didn't sell the house right away. I told myself it was because I needed to assess the property, get an inspection, talk to a realtor, figure out what it was worth. That was part of it. But the bigger part was that I wanted to be in the house. I wanted to walk through the rooms where I'd grown up and see them with new eyes, the eyes of someone who owned them now, not someone who was visiting and waiting for permission to sit down. I went back 3 days later. I'd texted Danielle. I'd gotten her number from Harold Finch, which felt surreal, and said I was coming by to inspect the premises, and Danielle had texted back okay. And I'd arrived at 10 in the morning with a clipboard and a flashlight and the most professional expression I could manage. My mother was waiting in the kitchen. She'd made coffee. She'd set out 2 mugs, the good ones, the blue ones with the white flowers that I'd always liked, and she said, "Sit down, Clara. Let's talk like adults." I didn't sit. "I'm here to inspect the house, not to drink coffee." Her smile faltered. "Clara, please. Your father is barely in the ground. He's been in the ground 3 months. You didn't tell me. Don't act like you're grieving with me now." The kitchen went quiet. The little boy, his name was Ethan, Danielle had told me in the car. Ethan, 3 years old, was in the living room watching a cartoon on a tablet, the blue light flickering on his face. My mother looked at him, then at me, and she said, in the voice she used when she was about to play a card, "You're going to sell this house. Your childhood home, where your father died, where your nephew lives. You're going to put your own mother and your own nephew out on the street?" There it was. The guilt lay. I'd known it was coming. I'd rehearsed for it in the car, in the shower, in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep. I'd practiced saying no, but hearing it in my mother's, in the kitchen where I'd grown up. "I'm not putting anyone on the street," I said. "The house is mine. I have the right to sell it. I'll give you time to find another place. I'm not stir." "No," she said. "You're cold. Like your father." I flinched. I didn't mean to. She saw impressed. He was the same way, quiet, cold, never felt. Left a letter instead of talking to his own daughter. That's not love, Clara. "Maybe," I said, "but at least a house." "What did you leave me?" "A group text saying my ex-husband was still welcome." Face closed. That was a difficult time. "I'm done with," I said. I turned and walked down the hall to study. The study was a desk, a leather chair, bookshelves lined with engineering manual and mystery novels, a lampshade shade. The air smelled like old paper, and the particular scent of my father's pipe tobacco, even though he'd quit smoking 10 years ago. I stood away for a minute, and I went in. I told myself I was looking at maintenance records, roof repairs, furnace service, anything I would need. I opened desk drawers, looked through folders. I found the furnace receipt from 2019, the roof inspection from 2021, a water heater, and then I found it didn't open. It was the bottom drawer of the desk, locked. I jiggled it, looked around the desk. On the underside, taped to was a small key, peeled it off. I put it in the lock. It turned. Inside the drawer, a leather-bound journal, and an old iPhone, and with the headphone jack, plugged into a chart that ran behind the desk, and a manila envelope labeled "Mother's handwriting." "Mine's this." A leather chair. My hands were shaking. Journal. The first ended 4 years ago. Years before the divorce. A year before David and had started their affair. If David had been truth about the timeline, he hadn't. Father's handwriting neat, methodical, handwriting of an engineer. Grit talked to Danielle about David. She told Danielle that David was unhappy, that Clara was too busy, that made him. Or that was wrong. She told me to stay out of it. She always tells me to stay out of it. I read it twice. I turned the page. Danielle called it. They met for me. Margaret. She set it up. She says Danielle needs a strong man, is better than what's out there. She says Clara will win. Clara is strong. I don't know what to do. If I tell Clara, Margaret will leave me. If I don't, Clara will never forgive me. Give me either way. My breath was coming fast. I turned pages. Entry after entry. My mother suggesting Danielle drop by the house when I was at client meetings. My mother telling I didn't appreciate him. My mother covering for them when they were late to family dinners. Mother telling me over and over that I was imagining things and working too hard and affectionate with David. And then the entry that made my blood run cold. Danielle isn't. She says it's conceived in July. Clara and David were still married then. Margaret says they'll figure it out. She says Clara will understand once the baby is here. I don't think Clara will and. July. Ethan was 3. If he'd been conceived in July of the year before the divorce, I did the math. Yes. That lined up. Ethan had been conceived, still married to David. While David was telling me he was tired and stressed, maybe we should talk about us. While my mother was telling me I was imagining things, I closed them. I sat in the chair, and I breathed in, out. I thought about the little boy in the living room, cartoons with David's eyes. I thought about Danielle, carrying a child that had an affair her mother had arranged. I thought about my father, sitting in this same chair, writing these entries, knowing all of it, and hating himself for it. I didn't cry. I was past crying. What I felt now was something cleaner and more useful. It was resolve. I had photos of every page of the journal with. I opened the manila and it contained more documents. Message screenshot between my mother and Danielle. Dated. Organized. My father had been evidence. He'd been building a file. He'd known somewhere that one day I had everything back in the drawer. I locked it. I put the key in my pocket. I walked out of the study, down the hall, through the kitchen where my mother was sitting at the table staring at her coffee, said. She looked up. What you were looking for? I looked at her. Reeled her. At the woman given birth to me, who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike and eat gravy and be quiet when things got uncomfortable, and who'd arranged sister to sleep my husband? I said. I found it. I left. I drove home. I called Patricia Voss, my divorce attorney, apparently my attorney too. And Patricia said, you can give them 90 days. After that you can file for eviction. But Clara, are you sure you want to do this? It's going to get ugly. Oh, I said. Do I called a realtor. I listed the house. I had the 90-day notice delivered by a processor. Because I didn't want to hand it to my mother myself. I didn't trust the mail. And then, that night, sitting at my kitchen table in my condo, with the photos of my father's open on my laptop, I selected 3 pages, the entry about my mother setting up the first coffee date, entry about my mother telling David I didn't appreciate him, and the entry about Nancy, to my mother's number. No message. No caption. Just photos. I put the down. I waited. 10 minutes later, the phone. My mother's name on the screen. I stared at it. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked up. I didn't say oh. On the other end, silence. Then my voice, small and stripped usual armor. The voice I'd never heard before, voice of a woman just realized she was Sarah. She said, we need to talk. I closed my eyes. Somewhere outside, the October wind rattled the window. Yeah, I said. We do. I chose the coffee shop on Burnside, the one with the uncomfortable chairs and the coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, because I didn't want to be anywhere that felt like home. I didn't want my mother to be able to cry into a familiar mug and turn this into a moment. I wanted linoleum and fluorescent light, and the constant hiss of the espresso machine. I got there early. I ordered a black coffee. I sat at a table in the back, facing the door, with my father's journal in my bag and the printed text messages folded in my coat pocket. I'd slept 4 hours. I'd eaten half a piece of toast. I felt like a wire pulled too tight, but I was ready. My mother arrived first. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize. Navy, expensive. The kind of thing she bought when she wanted to look like she was doing fine. Her hair was done. Her makeup was careful. She walked to the table, sat down across from me and said, you look well. Don't, I said. Her mouth closed. A barista appeared. She ordered a latte. The barista left. The espresso machine hissed. I don't know what you think you found in that study, she said, leaning forward, lowering her voice. But your father was a sick man, Claire. He was depressed. He imagined things. He wrote down. My voice was don't do that. Don't make him the villain, no. You spent 40 years making him the silent, the irrelevant, the one who stayed out. Don't suddenly make him crazy because he wrote down the... Her jaw tightened. Clara, you have no idea what was going on in this. I have the text messages between you and... I have the dates. I have the entry where you told Danielle to be there. I have the entry where you set up their first... I have the entry where you said Clara will be fine because Clara is strong. So don't tell me I don't know what was going on. I know exactly what was going on, she said. The latte arrived. She did. Then the door opened. And Danielle... She had... He was in a stroller, bundled in a puffer jacket, sucking on a pacifier, his eyes wide, taking in the... Danielle saw me, saw my mother, walked to the table and said, what's about? You said it. Sit down. Danielle sat. She looked from me to my back, staring me. Good, I said. You scared? Because what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything. I pulled the printed text message in my pocket. I slid them across the Danielle. These are Mom and you. From 5 years ago. Read them. Danielle picked them up. She read. Face changed. Confusion. Recognition. Something else. These are... Remember these. But wait, I said. The first one. March. Mom texts you. David is unhappy. Is never home. That's 2 weeks before you and David are. No, Danielle. She arranged it. Mother. Mom? My face was stone. Danielle, did you? Danielle's voice was small. Did you tell me? Did you set it up? She didn't answer. She looked at the table, at her latte, at Danielle's face. Mom. I was trying to help you, she said, and cracked just a little, and I recognized it. The crack was real. But the emotion behind it was self-pity, not remorse. So lonely, Danielle. You were 28, and you'd had a real relationship, and you and I of something. David was there. He was available. He was a good man. He was married, I said. He to me. I know. Her voice rose. It went quiet around us. Or maybe it didn't. I was just hyper-aware. The way you are when your whole life is being linoleum table. I know he was married to you, Clara, but you were always fine. You were always the strong one. You got the grades. You got the job. You got the house. You didn't need anyone. Danielle needed someone. She needed me. And I chose the one who needed me. The words hung in the air. The espresso machine hissed. A cup clattered somewhere. Ethan made a small bored sound in his. I looked at my mother. Thought about 38 years of trying. I thought about the gravy boat and the cranberry sauce recipe and the college graduation she'd forgotten and the car Danielle had gotten in the group. Text that said David was still welcome and the journal in my bag and the little boy in the stroller with David's eyes. You didn't choose Danielle because she needed you, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried. Danielle because she was easy to control. You chose her because she would do what you said, because she needed your approval, because she would let you arrange her life. I didn't. I never did. I had my own opinions and my own life, and you couldn't stand it. So you told yourself I was strong and didn't need anyone, and you used it as an excuse to destroy my marriage. You didn't protect Danielle. You used her. You used her loneliness by your own need to be in control. Danielle was crying now, quiet tears running down her face, and she wasn't wiping them. She was staring. She was seeing her for the first time. You used me, she whispered. You told me he was unhappy. You told me Clara. You set me up. I was trying to. Stop. Danielle's voice broke. Stop. I lost 5 years of my life. I have a son whose father doesn't want him. I live in your house because I have nowhere else to go. You did this to me. On purpose. My mother looked at me. Her face was crumpling now. Carefully applied makeup, the expensive coat, the whole performance falling apart. Clara, she said. Clara, please. I'm sorry. I'll say it. I was wrong. Never have. I stood up for you. I should have been your mother. I'm sorry. There it was. The apology. The one I'd been waiting for my whole life. The one I'd imagined in the car, in the middle of the night. Mother saying, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have chosen you. She reached the table. Her hand was shaking. Clara, please. If you don't sell the house, if you let us stay, I'll tell everyone. I'll tell the whole family what I did. I'll apologize to you in front of Anne. Just don't the house. It's all I have. I looked at her hand. I looked at the apology. I thought about the journal, the entry where she'd said I would be fine because I was strong. 38 years of being the strong, the fine one, the one who didn't need it. I thought about what accepting this would mean. It would mean trading the house, my father's last gift, the only thing that was truly mine, for words, for an apology that had come only because she'd been caught, for a performance of exactly as long as it took for her to get wed. I thought about my father's letter. Don't let anyone talk you out of thing ever again. I don't need, I said. My hand froze. I don't need it, I repeated. I needed it 10 years ago. I needed it when I was 22 and you forgot my graduation. I needed it when Danielle got the car I saved for. I needed it when my husband was cheating on my sister and you knew and said nothing. I needed it then. I don't need it now. I stood up. I put on my coat. I picked up my bag, journal inside. The house is being sold, I said. You have 90 days. I gave you a fair amount of time. I'm not going to negotiate. I'm not going to trade my father's house for an apology you should have given me decades ago. I'm done. I turned to leave. Clara. Her voice a scream now, raw and ugly, the mask completely gone. Ungrateful. After everything I give. I raised you. You're just like him. Father. And dead inside. I didn't turn around. I walked out of the coffee shop. It was raining. Portland rain, the fine, persistent kind that gets in. I stood on the sidewalk in the rain, without umbrella, and I breathed. The rain cold on my face. My hair was getting wet. My coat was getting wet. And I felt free. Not happy, not yet. Free that comes with birds singing. The other kind. The heavy kind. The kind that comes after you've carried something for a very long time. Ache, but you can breathe. I walked to my car. Home. The car was warm, the lights on, and Sam was there. Because I had a key, and because I was doing this to, and because he'd said, I'll be here when you said, you don't, and Sam had said, I know. He was on the couch with a book. He looked up when I came in. My wet hair, eyes, the set of my shoulders. He clocked. He stood up. Hey, are you okay? What happened? He just opened his arms. And I walked into them. And I stood in the wet hair and I was done crying. But I leaned into him, and for the first time I didn't pull away from someone saying, I'm here. You don't have to do this alone, Sam said, into my wet hair. I closed my eyes. Thought about all the time I'd done it alone. The divorce, the apart wedding, the letter, the coffee shop. Thought about my father's voice. Don't let anyone talk out of anything. I know, I said. I don't want to anymore. And the house, the small, loud, chaotic house that Maya had bought 3 years ago, smelled like turkey, sage, and Maya's famous mac and cheese, which was nothing like my mother's cranberry sauce. And I had to admit better. I was in the kitchen. A dish of roasted vegetables. I set it on the table. I looked around. Maya at the stove, Sam carving the turkey, Lily arguing with Maya's son about who got the drumstick. The TV around playing a footy was watching. I thought, this is what it feels. The gravy was in a regular bowl. White soda chip, no history. Maya had bought it at Target. I'd laughed when I saw it. And Maya said, no more chipped boat in this house. I'd hugged her. And Maya had said, okay, enough. The turkey's burning. I sat down. I passed the rolls. I laughed at something Sam said. I ate the mac and cheese and it was good. Really good. And I said so. And Maya preened eyes. And it was perfect. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled out. A notification mail. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second. I thought about her. About Danielle. About the past. One more time. I flipped the phone over. Screen down. Table. I didn't listen. I picked up my glass. Wine. Red. The kinds liked. And I raised it. And I looked at Maya. At the woman who gave food and a bottle of wine. Said, we're doing this. I said, thank you. For inviting me. Maya looked at me. She saw the face down on the table. She saw the She saw me. Really saw me. The woman who'd cried on her couch. Who'd deleted the photos. Who'd stood in a coffee shop and said, I don't need your apology. Who'd built a studio and a life and a family out of 2 hands, and the people who stand with her. Maya raised her own glass. Up, she said. Eat your food, laughed. I laughed. I took a sip of wine. I took a bite of turkey. I looked at the table, at Sam, at Maya, chaos and the noise, and I thought, this is home. This is what home feels like. Not the house on Cedar Lane, not the gravy boat, not the mother who'd someone else. This table, these people, the ones who chose me. Outside, the Portland rain fell soft and steady against the windows. Inside, the candles flickered. Someone passed the gravy, in the regular bowl, the one from Target. No chip, no history, and I took a spoonful, and it was good. And I didn't think about the past at all. I was home.